because this whole video is about unifying, and it doesn't mean we're going to agree. Unity does not mean agreeing on everything. Unity means that we can be one voice and speak for each other and not hate each other. And we will still disagree on point to point. Unity in your marriage doesn't mean that everything that your wife says you're going to agree with and you guys are going to be 100%. But you're unified to raise your children, to love them, to feed them, and do all the things that's required. And so that's why I wanted to make that point, is that we're not always going to agree on everything. And we're not, but we got to stop hating each other and stop keying each other's cars and stabbing each other's tires because we talk about $1. Like that was the point I was trying to make at the end. Well, welcome back. I'm super excited to jump into this episode with Lee. We're going to do something different this week. We're recapping a whole bunch of our episodes. We did 3 episodes with some really awesome guys. So Skip, Sligh, Dr. Deere, and Mike Ketelaar from the NDA. And so we're taking a look and diving into, we've found a theme. And I mean, that is what we're really kind of banking on and looking at here, is there's a theme from 3 different individuals, 3 different perspectives coming at, what Michigan needs to do next. And
for management purposes.
Yeah, for management purposes. And by no means was the Everland Outdoors podcast supposed to be about deer management and all that. But it is a
was it
portion.
Supposed to be about
rules and regulations in
we
Michigan.
Are deer management.
Yeah. Sorry, specifically rules and regulations.
Yeah,
it is
Michigan.
Everything deer management. It is everything whitetail management and habitat management and all encompassing. And Michigan regulations. That's where we are, and so it does impact us and all that kind of stuff. And this is something that we do care about tremendously, because it's our kids' future, wanting to hunt, wanting to have a resource, keep the resource around on the ground and all that kind of stuff. So we're not intentionally trying to beat this drum forever. Our goal is to...
Yeah, it kind of fell on our shoulders just by having Skip on there. And then obviously one thing led to another. And our goal, like Jay said, is to literally just educate the hunter, educate the outdoorsman on all things land. So that means... And, one thing that is all things land is the proper management of a white-tailed deer. So, again, we're not here to swing people one way or the other. We're literally simply having these conversations to educate the hunter for you to make your own decision. Yeah. We have our opinions. It is 100% your right to have your own opinion, and we're not here to judge you by any means. Again, these are the conversations that we're having with very credible sources. And I think this is a unique episode as far as us taking information, little tidbits of what they said, and combining this all into one podcast for a person to, honestly, if you listen to the last 3, or if you haven't, you can listen to this podcast and get a general idea of what each person stands for. And again, if we're not trying to take anything that these people are saying out of context. And, if we did take this the wrong way, we apologize beforehand.
Yeah, please correct us.
Yes, but you can 100% go back to our previous episodes, watch the podcast or listen to the podcast as an entirety, and hear, you'll gain more context on what this person was talking about. But we're doing our best to take all of those points and combine this into one podcast to educate and to reflect on. And honestly, at the end of the day, our main goal is to, and we'll get into this later, but to unite the outdoorsmen, unite the hunters, so we can do what's right for our resource.
Yeah, and Lee said it really well. And so we're going to take a look at, or what we're going to do today is we're going to kind of jump into the clips from those 3 episodes and then give our little bit of commentary on each one of those. And again, the goal is to unite each other, to bring each other together, because a fractured body does not do any good. And so as if we can unite and go against and help and defend and protect and fight against all the people that might not agree with us and aren't even looking at the interests of the hunter first and foremost. So if we can unite as hunters and go do that, then that's the goal and that's the idea.
I think out of all this, there's only one thing that I have a very, very strong opinion on that we'll get into. So again, this is just my opinion. These are our opinions.
Yeah.
And we're not here to swing you one way or the other. This is just straight from the word of mouth of them, the people that we've had the privilege of talking to. So get into the first little clip.
Yeah.
First one is Skip Sligh. If you don't know much about Skip Sligh or who he is, Iowa resident. He's not just a big game hunter. I will speak on Skip's side that he spends a lot of time advocating for the proper resource and proper management of deer, not only in Iowa, not only in Michigan, but all across the state. So like he's very active in Ohio. I don't know, remember what it was called as Ohio Deer Hunters Association, maybe. But needless to say, he's very active, very educated on the topic, and it was a great conversation. So we'll start off with, and if you do know Skip, you know that he does, he's very matter of fact in his talking. So again, he's a very
dogmatic.
Yeah, so we'll get into this. First clip from Skip.
A third of the hunters have quit in Michigan. The age class is out of whack. It's completely backwards. The buck to doe ratio. I mean, there's really nothing in Michigan that's managed well. And I also understand, like from the Lower Peninsula, the very bottom, to kind of the northern part of the Lower Peninsula to the UP, are kind of three different types of habitat and models. And you get to where I hunted in the UP, and it's like there's no deer now. It's not an overpopulation problem. It's not a bad buck to doe ratio problem. There's a no deer problem. So I get all that stuff. So we just have to start the discussion in Michigan, just understanding that what's going on is not working. And your DNR, your legislators, the people who run your state, I talk to groups of them, individuals, them, generally privately, they know that the model is not where it needs to be. They know it needs changed. I would say they're panicking, and they'll say a lot of things privately that they won't say publicly. But when you lose a third of the hunters in 25 years, that's really fast, and that's fast compared to any state too.
You want to go first?
Well, I mean, Skip gets right after it. He makes it, like we said, he's very dogmatic. To make a bold statement that says nothing in Michigan is working, I agree and I disagree. Like, I think that the DNR in Michigan does a really good job of patrolling, managing. They've always been awesome for me personally to deal with, will help me with any situation. They come out, they do a fantastic job with that side of things of regulating patrolling.
I like that he does say that DNR does know that there is a problem and
right.
They are trying to fix it. So I think that's what when I heard that, it's like, we are always to blame somebody.
Yeah, and that's one thing that's like, okay, we do. Sorry to cut you off there, but I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, there's always somebody to blame. Somebody's got to be the scapegoat. And I don't know. My other only point to that is like, he didn't really address it from a Michigander and a guy that hunts the UP and stuff like that. Like a big part of our resource up there is getting utterly destroyed by the wolves. Like, I have to say it. Like, wolves are a massive problem, and the reintroduction to them. And I'm not trying to sideline the topics and all that kind of stuff, but like, as we look at this whole managing our herd as a whole, and like what we're doing here, like we have a apex predator up there that is running off and destroying the herd. Mm-hmm. So it's like that has to be brought up and has to be addressed at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Skip just recognizes in this clip, that Michigan does have a problem. More or less, I would say what he's trying to say is Michigan's resources not being managed correctly.
Yeah.
And I do like the point that he did off the bat say we'll get into more of clips later of this, but like he did say off the bat that it varies where you are.
Yeah.
The southern Michigan is different than the middle, and it's different than the north.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move into the next one.
I just want to bring this back to basics. This stuff, this is cliche, but it's so overlooked. I want everybody here just to look up the North American big game model for conservation and look at what saved the big game animal. And it is not, it's not a hunter saying stuff on Facebook and saying we need this and that. You need professionals that make scientific based decisions on how to manage that state. And go read the 7 pillars of the big game, the big game model. Critical for everybody to do that. And we need to get back to that. And that also needs to be taught in school and in hunter safety class. You know, what's it matter what I do, or even it's my land. It's my land. What do you care if I do? I hear that one all the time. Yeah, you do whatever you want on your land, but when it comes to the public resource, which the public owns, it held in a public trust, it's meant to be run by professional experts in those fields, like biologists, people who understand deer hunting, and it should be managed by deer hunters, people who are deer hunters and are biologists. So what people can do is support the change in the system. So your leadership will always dictate how Michigan is run. Your leadership is going to enact the regulations, and the regulations are the only thing that will change Michigan, period. You can, and I've heard this even since I was a little kid. We just need to educate more hunters so they self-regulate. And that's great. It is great. It's a big part, but it will not change anything. That's not how change happens, is to say, well, I'll be disciplined because 95% of people are just going to do what the regulations say. They're just going to show up, and if it's legal, I'm going to do it.
So this is kind of like a 2-part thing that is tied into this one.
Yeah, it's a big one.
It is a big one. And so I admittedly kind of, when he said that, look up the North American big game model, like I knew the gist of it, but I didn't know what it is. So I Googled it, and the North American model of wildlife conservation is a set of principles guiding wildlife management in the U.S. and Canada, ensuring wildlife is a public trust resource managed scientifically for sustainability rather than private ownership. It provides democratic access to hunting, prohibits commercial markets for wild game, and restricts take to legitimate, purposeful needs. That is pretty powerful in itself. And
yeah,
I think
just the definition right there.
Just the definition. So the 7 pillars that he was talking about, we'll link those in the description if you guys want to read that further. I highly recommend that you do.
Yeah.
To read that, take the time to actually read that. What I feel like what he's saying here is it is the government's job to set rules and regulations on the wildlife. We'll get into kind of potentially an opposing side later on in this podcast. But right here, I agree with Skip. It comes, the way that I see this is if the state has to set guidelines and regulations and rules because we as hunters are not educated enough to make the right decisions for our natural resource.
It's like I go back to the speed limit. And I mean, if we had no speed limits, how many more auto accidents would there be, right? If we go back in history and look at what happened to the buffalo, what happened to the whitetail deer, what happened to all of these things as humanity came across for trapping and regulations and all that kind of stuff. And these 7 pillars are built off of that to bring those species back. And I love pillar 1 where it's like it ends with, well, I'll read it. Wildlife is to be managed by the government agencies for the benefit of all citizens, not just landowners. See, that's the kicker here that I always want to go to in my heart is like, well, if we self-manage and do those kind of things, we'll make improvements. It is true. We'll make improvements in pockets and areas and all that kind of stuff. And I do agree with that statement. Like we can make a difference, and it's up to the individual. But at the same time, the individual left on its own, it's not going to get it done. And so it needs the government regulations.
Basically, if there was no rules and regulations and a 170-inch deer walked behind my house in the middle of summer, not that they would have antlers back in the middle of summer, but
towards the end of it,
towards
August,
the end of it,
September,
So like,
I'd love to jump up in the tree.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't
Get it
go in
done.
the tree. I would just grab the rifle, stand on the deck, and pop it.
Yeah,
So
but-
like
yeah.
that's a little aggressive, but like that's more or less, I would say, the rules and regulations need to be set because us as landowners, people, we're sinners. We're selfish and greedy, and
Well, that's the thing is it comes down to the end of it, and I'll go back to James 4. Read the book of James, James 4. He'll tell you, he straight out says, the brother of Jesus straight out says, all quarreling, all your arguments, all of it comes down to your personal pleasures. Mm-hmm. And that's like, it convicted the heck out of me this weekend reading that because I'm like, all this stuff is all about my own personal pleasures. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I want this, and it's like, sorry.
The church on Sunday, the preacher, it's in Galatians as well.
Yeah.
He talks kind of referencing that as well. But yeah, so that's kind of the gist of that. And that's why, I just want to bring that up because that is where Skip is coming from on this. So I want to give him that. So the next one I wanted to open with before we play the video, I want to say this for you guys to reflect on as the video is playing. For the 2020, and these numbers could be wrong. I apologize beforehand. I did this at like 11 o'clock last night. So these are the numbers that I got via Google. I should have went in further a little bit, but I was tired.
At first glance.
This
is what the numbers you can
Yes.
find.
So for the 2025 Michigan deer season, hunters harvested approximately 81,000 to 81,500 antler deer during the regular firearm season alone. That's a big number of deer being harvested in gun season. So I'll just let that marinate for a second, and we'll go into this next clip from Skip.
Hunters have the silliest excuses for not changing anything. It's mind-boggling. So one, the gun until these two things change, you guys in the state of Michigan can spin your wheels to the end of time, and nothing is going to change. Period. The gun season needs to be moved 14 silly days. It's 14 days in a calendar. Well, tradition. And, okay, it's a calendar, dude. And you can make your tradition 14 days later. And guess what? Your tradition has traditionally ruined the state of Michigan. It's traditionally sucked. It's traditionally it resulted in hunters quitting and the hunting sucking. And it's traditionally resulted in the serious hunters just saying, I'm leaving. I'm going to another state. I'm going to go to Indiana. I'm going to go to Ohio, right across the border. That looks the same. I'm going to go to Kentucky. I'm going to go to Kansas. I'm going to go to Iowa. That's what it's resulted in. The tradition is you're making every serious hunter leave that state. That's what tradition does.
So I think it's simply put here is what he's advocating for is for the gun season to be moved just because the gun season is at the prime of the rut when the opportunity is at its highest to harvest a buck. Mm-hmm. Would you agree with that? That's simply put what he's
So he really doesn't finish the two things, but like what I've heard because we were talking to him is the two things that he's advocating for is the gun season moves 14 days back. Yeah. We'll hear that later, but like he didn't really like go clean on that one, 14 days, and then a $1. Those are the things that he's really getting after right there to take down those numbers that you introduced this segment on at 81,500 deer shot done.
Antlered deer. Not deer, antlered deer.
Right, antlered deer.
Yeah. So I would say on the defense side of this, the reason, from my understanding, the reason that the NRC or the people who set these rules and regulations, or the reason that it is now is because, again, their goal is to increase the number of Michigan hunters and the retention of, increase the number of hunters in the state. And by the gun season being put in like the prime of the rut, the heart of the rut, when the bucks that, statistically majority of people are going into the woods to get a buck because it's not the right time to kill a doe. It's the hardest time to kill a doe. They're going to the woods to kill a buck. Statistically, it is prime time to have an encounter with a buck and enjoy the experience. Mm-hmm. So I would say that would be like the reason for the gun season being in the rut right now. So I get that. I don't know how I agree or how I feel about it, but Skip is saying to do what is right for our natural resource. One thing that we need to do is move the gun season out of the rut.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you. Like, I've been a November 15th guy my whole life. You know what I mean? I've looked forward for that. Like, my dad was just a gun hunter for a long time. And so that was his whole thing. It was like November 15th. But to Skip's point,
it's just a calendar.
It's just a calendar, and your days, your traditions can continue. And, are you able to harvest?
Your
what?
Traditions have traditionally made
sucked.
Michigan suck.
Like it is funny, but it's like, again, like we do things that hurt ourselves and we don't even realize it. And then when somebody calls us out on it, we get emotionally charged up because this is what we've always done. And it's like, man, okay, if it's that simple and we can make some, like those tweaks would make my kids be able to shoot. I don't care. Like, I don't care. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. It is like, if you didn't have a voice and we didn't have the internet, and this is 50 years ago and they made this change, no one would be saying anything. The government would take the rules. Those guys would suck it up, Buttercup, and they would go and hunt the next year and the next year.
14 days later.
14 days later. But because everybody's got a platform, aka us,
sorry,
also known as us, but like because of that, everybody's got to go get all emotional and fired up about it, and it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, the people that fight that, you could have a very strong case point of why, that may not, like, you may oppose that, but I never heard
your argument though, like
I don't want to say it.
It's a decent argument, but it collapses around itself.
Are you saying about
as kids or youth or people getting into hunting, this gives them the opportunity to get into hunting and all that kind of stuff. If your resource is dying, you're not going to retain hunters because now they can't go through what we talk about as hunter progression to then be able to have a full ecosystem on your property or on your land or on your hunting experience to have mature bucks and to do that and manage that well. So it's like, I hear the argument. I hear why they would say that. Like, this is going to give somebody the best opportunity in the woods to see and have a great experience and want to come back. That argument can be made for baiting. That argument can be made for a lot of different things, but it doesn't mean it's the right thing.
Yes. And the one note that I will say about that I actually have opinion on and have experienced myself, I hate to always resort this going to hunting other states, but let's be honest. It's much different if you've had the privilege of hunting in another state. When you go to another state, like let's say the second week in their gun season, the hunting is still good. I fall victim to every single year of after 3 days of gun season, I don't even get deer on trail camera. Like
no one does in this state.
It's
very few. You unless you got a couple 100-acre piece where you've got it all managed and set up and all that kind of stuff, you still get bed to food movement in daylight. I mean, I got clients, friends, family that have they get photos. Mm-hmm. I'll get photos occasionally and all that kind of stuff. But by and large, the state goes dark.
It does, and I think that speaks volumes to what it does to the actual deer herd. That deer. So, moving on to the next one. I'm going to open up again before this. Overall, 2025 season reports show a total harvest of around 295,739 deer, with antlered bucks comprising about 53 to 63% of the various segments. That is I didn't realize that. I guess I didn't look at the actual numbers from this year of antler harvest to not antlerless harvest. 53% to 63% of the total harvest in Michigan was antlered bucks. So to cut when I read that out loud, it instantly when people say that I'm out there meat hunting, good for you. That's cool. I applaud it. I respect it. But the majority of Michigan hunters are not going out in the woods to hunt meat. That's fair to say.
Well, I mean, the thing is the downside with the buck is he has meat too. And so that's where we'll get into this more, but the psychological effect of
the antlers on
its head, and then the fact that because I shot the smaller buck and I have another buck tag, I don't need to shoot a doe because I have the meat already in my freezer. We'll get into that.
Yep. All right, so we'll roll the next clip that goes with Skip.
The second thing, clear as day, these two things, that's it. One buck, people. The DNR, where there's deer in your leaders, want some doe shot. So in theory, I can shoot one buck and I could shoot 3 does, 2 does. How isn't that enough for anybody? How is that not enough? Sufficient, especially with the problems you have today. This 2 buck stuff, 2 bucks, and because I have 2 bucks, I'm just going to shoot one, whatever, and then I'm going to wait for the one that's maybe nicer. Maybe I'll just tag another one like it. I'm definitely not going to shoot does because I don't want to screw up my chances at the bucks. Well, only, a sliver of the pie is shooting 2 bucks anyway. Well, it's not about how many bucks get shot. One, now you don't shoot that big sliver, which is a chunk of bucks. Now those all get carried over. But what happens is all these guys go, hey, there's that 1.5-year-old buck. You can shoot them. You're still allowed to shoot them. But what happens is they go, maybe I don't want to shoot that buck. I got 1 buck tag and now I'm on does after that. Maybe I'll hold out. So it's the psychology of it. Yeah. That's what saves so many bucks is they go, maybe I will wait for a better one. I'll wait for a 2- or 3-year-old instead of shooting that 1.5-year-old. And, the other thing that 1 buck really solves is the number one crisis we have, which is access to quality land. So if I can only shoot 1 buck, maybe I don't need to lock up 5 different pieces. Maybe, and what happens is I shot my buck, now I'm out. Maybe I'm out somewhere shooting does, or I'm duck hunting or small game hunting or every other thing you can do. But it frees up access to other people. It doesn't crowd the public lands as much. You're tagged out, you're out, and it frees up place for somebody else. And
so obviously, Skip, the second initiative that he says it would be the correct move for Michigan is the 1 buck rule, which we all knew was coming. And the reason I brought those stats up in the beginning is because, to Skip's point, if there is a 1 buck rule, and a lot of arguments are said around only 6. I think we'll get into later. Mike says between 5 and 8% harvest 2 bucks.
Yeah.
So if that is your argument, I just want to. I was curious about this, so I looked this up, and I want to shed light on that. So if we took the number and said 58% of harvest was bucks, that equals to be 171,528.62 bucks were harvested in Michigan last year. So now, if we say that only 6% of those were a second buck, that would mean that 6% of those bucks would be 10,291.72. That's how many bucks would be left on the landscape if
they didn't shoot the
that
second
they
buck.
wouldn't shoot the buck.
Yeah.
So that's
still a lot.
That is a lot. And I just wanted to, because I was, again, after Skip said that, I was curious about. He said 6% is a large number. So I was like, okay, what would that number actually be? So
10, yeah.
That's 10,000 is a lot.
Well, yeah, it is. And the psychological, the mental game that is waged when the hunter's in the woods, and then how much he's going to shoot that doe. And I think the massive point that he makes, though, that it kind of gets swept under the rug, is access to quality hunting land.
Yeah, I'll admit when he said that during the podcast, it didn't click with me.
But it is like, I personally have managed, owned so much land, and I've been blessed to do so. And I know for a fact I would bring out, and like this is, the Lord's been doing a work in me, like looking at this. And as I'm reviewing this, I'm like, how much more would I have been able to bring out other people to hunt if it wasn't for my own selfish ambition that I still had another buck on that property that I wanted to harvest. And because I had another buck tag, or because my kids had another tag, or somebody else had, like, I was like doing it for them, and which was good on my part. But at the same time, like, once I'm tagged out, like, what do I have? I can bring other people hunting, and I can go do that, and they can slip in there. And then, like he said, I don't have to have the lease down the road. I can say, hey, dude, I'm giving up that lease because I don't need to have a buck here, 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 and here.
Because I can only kill one.
I can only kill one. And so it really, really does. And then, like, state ground, you know, guy gets in there, kills his buck, he's out of the woods. And I think that the overall impact of how much hunter enter and exit, you know, we know access is everything for managing your own property. How much more or so is it on state ground where guys are coming in and out, going wherever they want, doing all that kind of stuff? He kills his buck, he's gone. And he's not in there. And it just, the parking lots aren't full. They're not coming back like crazy. Man, I don't know. I'm definitely, I'm not into this for making regulation changes and all that kind of stuff. But I am definitely getting swayed in a certain direction just based on...
Yeah, again, like when he said this in the podcast, I mean, it just went over my head. Like, I didn't really think about that and have time to reflect on that. And now that you actually reflect on that, to his point again, just a quick recap, you know, what he was saying. 1 buck rule, the state is very loud and clear about how we need to harvest more doe. So what he's saying is a 1 buck rule would force... it would force more people to make the decision to shoot a doe earlier. You shot your buck. And again, I like that he says, if you want to shoot a six, to his, what he's saying, if the 1 buck rule would allow people, if you want to shoot a 6-point, and that makes you
shoot your spike
happy,
horn? Shoot your spike horn.
Shoot your spike horn.
Great.
But now you're done. And now you can go harvest doe to, again, what is the best, what we need to do to better our resource. And by doing that, and again, like, to your point, I fall victim to this all the time. I'm trying to swallow up as much ground as I can because my goal is to hunt a mature deer. And not every property that I hunt every year has a mature deer on it. So, like, I have to have several options. And I would selfishly say, like, I brought my dad, one of the permission pieces that I had this year, I brought my dad in after the deer that I was going after. And it was hard for me to do that because I'm like, if he does kill him, which I would have been happy for him at the end of the day because he deserves it. He's been at this a long time. He's never killed a mature deer in Michigan, which I think speaks volumes to a lot of this too.
You're right.
But
guys that have been hunting during the November 15th for 30 years have never killed a mature buck in Michigan. Yeah. I know multiple of them. Yeah. Many of them.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to pick on your dad, but it's like, guys, 100%.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would have been jealous. A part of me would have been happy for him, but I would have been jealous of, like, well, that was the only mature deer that I had access to hunt this year. And if my dad kills it, I'm obviously, bringing him in there.
And how many times does a guy do that I know personally? And I've done this myself. So I'm not picking on anybody because I do this.
Yes.
Where my mature buck gets shot and now my standards come down. Because I want to kill a buck and I still want to get in the woods. And so the mature buck that I was after in the neighborhood, he's gone. And so I'm like, oh,
now I'm going to shoot this deer.
Now I can only got
to
this
get my buck.
Yeah. And it's like, man, we just need to rip this. I got to get a buck Band-Aid. I personally, you do whatever you want out there, listeners, but like I personally need to rip I got to get a buck this year.
So it's funny. I have that mentality, but I went
4
or 5 years in Michigan without harvesting a buck.
Yeah, because you're scratching your itch elsewhere.
That's 100% true.
And I saw it in you, and I actually like witnessed it because I think that's like what we're supposed to do as disciples and walking with people. Is I witnessed it in you when you killed Dave this year, and it was just like, I'm done. And I was like, wow, like the sense of peace that you had with that.
Oh,
I was like,
so great.
I want that. And I'm still over here like scratching. I'm like, I'm Jack Jones and I got to get a buck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, it's like, it's crazy how much that like, but yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. I guess I never really reflected on that.
I got to do the Chappelle thing because my mom might listen to this, but like, and so remember when my mom's name's Rhonda, and so you'd be like,
likes a big Dave Chappelle
well,
fan?
No. But I used to always be like, come on, Rhonda. Do you remember that?
It's usually the crackhead.
Yeah. Sorry, that's terrible. But
It's
I'm not trying to promote it, but it's like, come on, Rhonda, we gonna get high. Sorry, terrible.
Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna move on to the next one.
Yeah.
So this isn't a 4-hour podcast. So the next topic that we're gonna get into with Skip is about APR regulations. So
what APR does is it just allows some deer to slip by to be 2 years old. That's it. And then you say, well, what's the downsides? Well, your best 1.5-year-old bucks get killed. And then the bucks that should be shot, like, you know, the old ones, it's like a 3-point and it's 6 years old, should be shot. So APR is just a Band-Aid. And that's why when I bring it back to the core issues of what's going to change Michigan, later gun season, 1 buck. APR does not need to be a part of this discussion.
So Skip obviously expresses why he doesn't think the APR is the right decision. We're not going to reflect on this much now. I just wanted to, bring attention why he doesn't think APR works. We'll get into more on APR with more conversations from the other guests. So,
Sure.
Skip I just want guys that are very heavily focused on and promoting APR. I don't think you're wrong, and we'll prove that you're not wrong later.
Yeah.
I just want you to open-heartedly listen to these conversations to say, is it the best for Michigan? So
sure. Can I say one thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, just the one thing that I think it's important to realize, like, a Band-Aid does help. And so right now, like he said, a Band-Aid, because it's like a Band-Aid does help you get over something. And so we're working towards that. And so we are seeing improvements because of the Band-Aid that is put in place. So is it...
Say the rest of it, because we'll
get into the rest of it later.
Yes. All right. So, you hear a lot about rule changes and how it takes away opportunity from people in the woods is kind of how we're addressing, to shed some context on what Skip is talking about here.
Yeah.
So we'll get into this and then, again, reflect on this after he's done.
We're not taking away anybody's opportunity. If you want to go shoot that 6-point, go for it. Don't put antler point restrictions in there. The dude that just wants to blast something because I got to have my buck, you can still do that. I'm not taking any of it. It's not me, but if the regulations are done correctly, you're not taking away anybody's opportunity. And guess what? Here's the thing that people don't understand in Michigan. Here's how, when I hunted in Michigan, I don't care if it was the southern part, the middle, the top. I would hunt November 15th, 16th, and 17th. About 17th, I'm like, done. I'm done for the year. Let's go rabbit hunting.
So what he's really shedding light on is the previously in that conversation we were talking about like the length of gun season.
Sure.
So here he touches on moving the gun season again, kind of in a form, but then also like we have, when people make the argument of like, do not take this opportunity away from me, to Skip's point, the goal of these initiatives or the changes would not be to take an opportunity away from somebody.
Yeah.
If you want the opportunity to shoot a deer, you can shoot a deer.
Well, that's where he's touching on APRs, is like if you remove the APRs, now the guy that wants to shoot a 6-point, wants to shoot the spike horn, still can. You go to 1 buck, you that frees it up to then get the other bucks through, that don't get shot in that. And then, I really think that, I love other states' models where we do see more deer activity and deer movement, because he's closing that statement down with, after the 17th, how many guys know that go to deer camp after 3 days, they just don't even go out in the woods anymore because the Orange Army has like just suppressed everything. The rut has now completely come to the halt. Like, I mean, what was happening in the woods naturally is no longer happening.
I love that you said naturally.
Yeah. The natural deer movement has been absolutely just done. So, that's why I'm saying like other states, because, and you can grab regulations for everyone. I'm not saying this is my opinion on what we should apply to this. What I'm just saying is that you get to see deer when you pick a state like Iowa or Illinois, where you have multiple gun seasons and they're for very short durations, and the pressure goes on and it comes off. And then,
like use Iowa, for example, you pick
one
gun season you want. And to that point, again, not taking opportunity. I think people with too much opportunity, I think that Michigan, the one thing that you could 100%, I think everybody would agree on, is we have so much opportunity. A 4-month long gun season,
deer season.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is a lot of opportunity. And if you were to shorten, let's say, you shorten gun season, I think the psychological effect that it will have on people will say, I only have this amount of time. I'm going to shoot a doe right away. Again, Michigan saying we need to harvest more doe, antlerless deer.
If you're just going to procrastinate, I've done it
I do it every
many times. I don't need to shoot a doe tonight because I'm just tired, and I don't really
last week of season I'm just grinding and try to kill a doe.
How much more would it be like if I had a 4-day gun season, and I'm here, I'm there, I've set aside time, I'm off. You know what I mean? It's not this whole every weekend I could go out and shoot a doe, but I really don't want to pull myself off the couch to go do it. It's cold, blah, blah, blah.
It's cold. I'm not going out this week.
I'm not dealing with it.
And all of a sudden life happens and
now
you don't go.
I ate 3 doe tags this year because I just didn't go.
Life happened and you got busy. I think, and the thing, I know we're going to get comments on people saying, I don't have the time. I only get to go hunting 1 week a year. I can promise you, if you had again, we're not advocating for a 4-day gun season, but hypothetically, if Michigan gun season was 4 days long and you wanted to go hunting, I think majority of people could make that happen. Let's say, I know people are going to go crazy on the 4. Let's say if it's a 7-day gun season. Out of those 7 days, if you truly want to go hunting, majority of people could find a day.
And if you can't, I get it, because there are people that are
busy.
There are a lot of people that have a life and all that kind of stuff.
Eating those words.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard because but as archery equipment allows for different stuff, muzzleloader seasons, all that kind of stuff, and we're not saying that this is going to fit every person's lifestyle. There's no way. It just physically can't. And so there's somebody that might miss an opportunity here. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect, but we're talking 1%ers.
Yes. Yeah. And so, moving on. Next pile.
Can I derail this for a second?
Oh, yeah.
I heard a chainsaw. Sorry.
Loggers are here.
Yeah. Sorry. Go on.
The next thing is probably the only thing I will publicly say that I have a hard opinion on.
Oh, wow.
And I feel very strongly about this. And it's actually bothering me because now I think out of all of this is probably the most, this is what's in legislative right now. And we're going to get into corn piles. So I'll let Skip talk about corn piles. Michigan is very strongly opinionated on this, and
let's go. Let's listen to that.
We'll listen to Skip.
Go look this up. Go look at what corn piles does to turkey numbers. The aflatoxins in corn kills turkeys at significant levels. It kills all sorts of wildlife. Baiting results in the predators quickly figure out where all the animals are feeding, whether it's turkeys, deer, whatever. The predation around bait sites is obscene. I mean, back in high school when I was in biology class, one of the papers and test examples we had to look at was in the UP when a bunch of guys were baiting in the UP, and right when season ended, they pulled their bait. And then they had pictures, this is back in the 90s, they had pictures of all the dead deer because right when season ended, all the bait got pulled and all the deer starved because they were artificially concentrated and then their food source got taken away. So there's another huge problem with the bait. All the habitat around bait, like the natural browse, the oak regeneration, it all gets destroyed, okay? the disease that it does give to turkeys and even stuff like bacterial diseases to deer is profound. The kids, so there's actually data between states that show states that don't bait have a higher retention rate on all threes, but especially the kids on non-bait states. And I would say I understand that, because when I talk to the kids, they're like, yeah, Dad threw me in front of the corn pile. When the cell cam went off, I shot the deer. It was pretty easy. This is lame. I'm going to do something else. I mean, it's not retaining hunters. So, you know, if the difference in the data between bait states and non-bait states on retaining hunters and getting kids captivated is significantly different. It is vastly better in non-bait states. Again, the 3 R's, we're retaining and keeping new hunters and engaging new hunters in Iowa at a very high rate. In Michigan, you guys are hemorrhaging hunters.
So yeah, that's one side of the corn piles. We're not going to get into this too much because the next video is again addressing corn piles. But
the point that I thought you wanted to make was the retaining kids in like
2 things.
There's
one,
he made 2 points there.
One is I am a big turkey hunter.
Yeah, huge turkey hunter.
I love turkey hunting. If somebody put a gun to my head and said pick between deer and turkey, I don't know if I could. Yes, I do love turkey hunting. So to me, if we as hunters are going to do something that for our selfish needs and desires that is going to harm other wildlife, I will never jump on board with that, especially my turkeys. And again, this is even talking about other birds, songbirds, all the other animals that a corn pile. Again, we're not talking supplemental feeding. I will say that there is a correct way for deer feeding or baiting, but we all know if baiting becomes legal in Michigan, 90% of the baiting is corn piles.
So like that's one of the things that I like struggle with, and I think I know the video is coming up, so I don't want to like mess with the clips. So I'm going to focus on the kid part because we'll talk about the corn piles later. Because I'm not seeing his statistical data on that, but if that is actually the case, which we know that Iowa is retaining hunters and growing new hunters, their numbers are. I do know that I have seen that. Michigan is not, and I know as a Kentucky landowner and putting out food right now, my boys, I can personally say, don't care. Like they want to go kill a deer, and so like. But I don't know how I can see that those effects on a young person, if he go out there, because I've seen them down in Kentucky. I don't do this. I've seen it where they literally take a semi-load or like a dump truck load and they just dump one giant pile of corn and it's in one spot, and there becomes a huge pinwheel of trails that go to that one corn pile from everywhere and
the vegetation is just
absolutely destroyed around it and all that kind of stuff.
So what it's doing is it's centralizing large number. You're drawing deer from where they normally wouldn't be traveling to live and eat into one area, and in return, it's just devastating the actual habitat around that. But on the kid subject, I always look at it as, and we had conversations like this in the beginning of the year, is like, if you, and this is partially just because of the way my personality works, but if anything is ever given to me easy, I don't get like into it. I always gravitate towards something that's hard and challenges me. Like let's for example, I played all the sports in high school. I was never naturally gifted at any of those sports, but man, the amount of dedication and effort that I put into those, because it was harder for me, made me a better athlete. So I look at that as far as the hunting side. Like I feel strongly like if you put a corn pile on a piece of property and the kids just see these deer coming to it and feeding, and like, yes, like to your point, like, yeah, the kids just want to kill a deer, but are they losing on the pursuit of it? And what is ethically right?
I could totally see them, the mental aspect of it and go, yeah,
you as your dad, you're going to educate your kids. So
right. But still at the same time, I could see him going, yeah, I did that 3 or 4 times, Dad. And like, I'm good because like they came out to the corn pile and like, yeah, we can sneak up there and we can shoot them. And versus the actual, like, my son asked me the other day, he was like, whoa, isn't hunting like because he's like you, like trying to figure out what sport he wants to get into. And he's like, oh, well, hunting's a sport, Dad. And I was like, yeah, it is, and I was like, I got all excited. I'm like, yeah, it is a sport.
Let's go train.
Do you want to talk about that sport? And I was like, but I said, I told him, I was like, the thing that I like about hunting the most is like, I get to do it year round. And I look at it like it's a chessboard. And I get to set all the pieces, and we set up all the pieces. We put our food plots in. We make sure there's browse species. That's why we're doing a timber cutting here.
Look at the Super Bowl was last night.
Yeah.
Do you think the athletes that played in the Super Bowl are only doing this seasonally?
No,
it's an all year dedication.
And so that's where I'm like, and that's why I like setting the mousetrap and building and designing, because it requires it all year. If all I'm gonna do is dump bait, I lose interest. I don't get as excited about it.
And you kill my turkeys.
And I kill your turkeys with your corn. I don't use corn, so like don't come at me with, none of that. I've listened to Skip's thing, and I know what he's talking about, and I understand that the corn does kill turkeys. It does kill deer, and I know how their stomachs work and all that kind of stuff. So like, you don't have to, there's no argument to me there. Supplemental feeding, like we said, protein.
It's different. It's different.
Minerals, but all that kind of stuff. We can get into that.
Yeah. So again, I'm playing this next clip just out of, I truly think this is just me personally. I think the Michigan baiting ban is in legislative right now. So they're looking to remove that. So I want to have this play just for people to reflect on. Again, if it becomes legal, you have every right to do what is, and I will try not to judge every single person who goes out and does.
Well, we're at Everland. We're not going to shame you for doing it. Like it is what it is.
My neighbors, I will shame. I'm just joking, but I'll be disappointed at killing my turkeys. I think. Right, let's get into the next clip. So this is just to shed light on, if it becomes legal, what we're talking about is just because something legal doesn't make it right. Just to give a little context on this.
For me to be able to put the gun on the drone and fly it around, who are you to say? A dead deer is a dead deer. If it's legal, it's okay.
Yeah.
And all this, well, if it's legal, it's fine. There's a whole lot of things that shouldn't be legal. And just because something's legal doesn't mean it's fine, ethical, wise, or advisable to a deer herd. Okay. I get so tired of that argument. So, and the other one with bait, real quick.
Yeah.
Bait compared to an ag field, bait compared to food plots, I could go on for 20 minutes on this. They're not even remotely close. I can bring receipt after receipt after receipt. I debate anyone, anytime on this based on simple facts going down the list, but I'm going to skip right past it. And somebody'd go, but it gives me an opportunity to shoot a deer. And then they say, well, you're doing fill in the blank to bring deer in. Everything you do is to bring a deer in close. Getting on a trail that coincides. You're there because it brings a deer in close. But there's so many things you can do in the place of bait that don't have all the downsides. Somebody'd be like, well, you put in a water hole. Isn't that the same thing as bait? It's trying to get the same result to get a deer in close, just like I put in a rub hole. I put in a rub post. Aren't you just trying to get a deer in close? All these things are. If you put out a decoy, aren't you trying to get the deer in close? They are. They are all trying for that same goal. The difference is all those things don't have all those downsides. They're not killing turkeys. They're not creating this massive predation. They're not destroying the habitat around the browse of the natural browse. It's not pulling it at the end of the season and everything starving, where like a food plot could go on into spring. Mine will be growing in the spring, stuff like that. So there's so many alternatives to bait. And guess what? When I grew up, I couldn't afford bait. I never baited. I was around my buddies who did it, and all my buddies that did it ended up quitting hunting. All of them. I can think of 12 of their faces in my mind. They all quit.
Yeah. I think pretty self-explanatory. Again, what Skip's point there was saying just because something is illegal doesn't make it right. And that's what he was saying with the drone thing. Like if it was illegal to put a gun on a drone, it's not ethically right to go and do that. And that's, well, we're a drone company and we're still saying that's not ethically right. So it's not something that we would support.
I mean, I think that this is where, because I think we're going to talk about corn piles and volume. And this is where like it gets really weird for me in the state of Michigan as they try to regulate the amount of feed that you can actually have out there at a given time.
My instant defense, and they'll never try to regulate. They'll set a rule saying you're allowed to dump a bucket, but just like baiting is not legal right now, people are going to go and take it further.
I get it.
Yeah.
You know, and so like that, but why are they doing that? And so that's the question that I want to like just pose the listener. They're doing that because they do understand the downside, the adverse effects. And so when they're saying just go put a bucket amount and you can bring out that same bucket every day after that, and you can only bring out a certain amount, is because they understand the biological effects that having a giant corn pile out there has. And so, I say that because the DNR does know what they're talking about, and they do know what's going on, and they're trying to appease everybody.
Well, the good segue to what I had written down next I want to touch on is, again, it's looking to be passed right now in the state of Michigan. It
already has passed the House, correct?
Yes. And I want to make this very clear for people that are saying, because I had this argument in the beginning too, like, oh, now the DNR is going to say it's legal to bait if you buy a $20 permit. Do a little more research. It is not the DNR that is trying to allow baiting in Michigan. They are still opposing that matter. It is the Farm Bureau that is bringing this to attention to try to get it legalized. If you know anything about the Farm Bureau, they sell more corn, they get more money in their pocket. So it is 100% not the biologists who told you that made baiting illegal are still saying it's bad. The DNR is still saying it is bad because of these things that happen around corn piles. Now,
and I think a good point we have to make is everybody thought like baiting got ripped out. And I think there is, because of CWD, everybody went on like the CWD, like because of the disease, and I fell victim to that trap as well. Is that I was like, oh, it's because of the diseases, and they're rubbing noses, and they're gonna do that, and like they're gonna do that more in those areas. Really, there's so much more adverse effects than just CWD. And so like any disease. Forget about even like the adverse effects are higher. Forget about diseases completely. And still, you talk about predation, you talk about they know how to hunt around these things, and they do a really good job at it. They're designed to do that. You bring in all these little species of rabbits and all this kind of stuff. So they immediately key on. And Skip went through it, so we don't need to go through it.
Yeah. So, again, if you feel, more or less, I can simply say I've been very open about this. If you feel the same way that I do about the legalization of bait, and again, I will not judge a person who does not agree with me. But if you do feel the same way, now is the time to take action on that. A simple email to your legislator expressing, as we will get into later, expressing your concerns in an educated way is how we can stop this now, because the Farm Bureau is pushing to legalize the baiting in Michigan. So that is one thing I will, again, reflect on. That's what I feel is strongest about all this. And I will openly have a voice about that. That's enough that we're finished with Skip. Our next guest that we had on was Mike Ketelaar. Did I say his name correctly? Mm-hmm. Okay. Mike Ketelaar, interesting. He comes from an interesting perspective. He's two interesting perspectives. Multiple. For one, he is a member of the DAT, the Michigan DA team, which is the Deer Advisory Team. He is also the president of the Michigan NDA. So I think he speaks well on two parts. One, how do laws get changed in Michigan, how to make changes, how that looks, as well as he's also a voice for the NDA. So we'll get into Mike's first section here.
Our DAT team, we're an advisory team.
Yep.
That is all we are. Mm-hmm. We as a team have conversations, hopefully get to a vote, and maybe during a cycle like this year for 2026, we have one regulation that we voted upon, and we're going to present that to the DNR. And the DNR can put it in their wildlife order, or they don't have to put it in there. And so really what I make an analogy is the DNR comes up with the menu, and they present that menu. That's the wildlife order. They present that menu to the NRC. The NRC can support a particular entree item. They can make an amendment to it, or they can say, nah, we want to do the chef special today on this particular thing. So you are correct. The last wildlife order had about a 90% fail rate, if you're looking at it that way, in terms of implementation. So our team, we simply give recommendations to the DNR. They can support it, they can be neutral, or they can not support it. It doesn't have to go into their wildlife order. The wildlife order is the menu given to the NRC that they vote on, but they can change out the mashed potatoes to a loaded baked potato. Or they can say, we don't like any of this, and they kind of take their own autonomy and they bring their own regulation forward.
So I just brought that clip in just to explain, because before we talked to him, I didn't really have a very good understanding of what the DA team actually did or does. So.
Yeah, I thought, first and foremost, Mike did a fantastic job. So shout out to him as an individual, did a fantastic job of just explaining and educating a lot of people. We had a lot of comments on thank you for educating us on how this all works.
Yeah, because Michigan is very different from other states.
Yeah.
And when you bring in this team does this and this team, and then it goes to the NRC.
And he goes into this in the next video clip, and I'm very glad that we're showing that again, because it's really important that we start to understand how this is really working. Yeah. So shout out to him for doing that and really having that in educating us all on that. So
to reflect on that, DA team does not set any rules. They are just selected individuals who make recommendations to the DNR. So it's from there. The DNR, what I don't think we talk about in the video, so I'll touch on now, is next we'll get into what the NRC is. So just in case it's not in the video, I don't know if the DNR does not make the laws for Michigan. Their job is to enforce the laws. So the NRC is the people who make the laws, and here's Mike explaining
how that process
works.
NRC Natural Resource Commission. These are people that are appointed. They're termed, but they're appointed by the past governor or current governor, in this case, Governor Whitmer. And these are individuals. This is an unpaid role. They are not paid government employees.
Are you saying unpaid in quotes, or are they unpaid?
No, they're unpaid.
Okay.
They are unpaid. They do not collect a paycheck for this role.
Sure.
Their responsibility is to handle emails and phone calls from individuals like us, other Michiganders. 12 times a year, there is an NRC meeting. One of them is happening right now as we're doing this. And their goal, their objective is to sit there. It's a panel of 7 of them. 3 of them are Democrats. 3 are always Republicans. And there's always one, what's the word I'm looking for? Neutral, kind of bipartisan.
So the only thing that I have to touch on that is, later on in the podcast, again, if you guys want to hear more of this in proper context,
please do. Go back and watch the whole thing.
Yeah, that one I really do think it's a great podcast. It's very educational. Yeah. So one thing Mike does mention is he doesn't know if these are the best people to be chosen to sit on the NRC. I have no idea. He didn't go into how those people are selected. They're governor appointed, but how does that come about? So we have no idea, or can't shed light on that.
They're appointed.
But
she just said they applied, and she said, I pick you, and I pick you, and I pick you.
She picked those.
Yeah, they're appointed. She's appointed. It's just I know a little bit about that, but I'm just saying an appointed person to that is she's just handpicking them.
So probably potentially not the best or the best options for the rules and regulations they make. Regardless of that, though, I have heard from a lot of other sources since we've started shedding light on this, that the NRC board is a very good group of people right now. I know they receive a lot of hate, and sometimes rightfully so. I know in the past they said that they were not the best, not the right people to be sitting on there, but I have heard the people that are sitting on the board now are the ones that will listen to us as hunters, as people of Michigan, and they are also the ones that if we do want change, like now is the time to educate them and promote the change.
And we want to encourage everybody that's listening to this. You don't respond if somebody screams in your face.
Yes.
You don't respond. If you are that person that just responds to somebody that's screaming in your face, yelling at you and telling you you're a vile human and you're worthless and all that kind of stuff, I don't know if you've ever been talked to that way, but I don't respond well to that. So please, I just encourage everybody that has an opinion on these things, don't hide behind your keyboard. Don't send hate mail. Send educated information, but send informational. Send mail, but be very, 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 very cautious on how you point.
Cordial.
Yeah. Right word? Well, yeah. Be cordial. Be kind. These are people that are serving your community
for free.
Lee loves the for free stuff. I don't really care. You can pay me off and I'll say all sorts of stuff. So if you want to send us money, we'll just start saying whatever you want us to say. We're for sale. No, we're not. But
seriously.
Seriously, send us money. No, totally joking. We are not for sale. But all that to be said, and I forgot. I got a retired commissioner, or who was a commissioner on the NRC for a number of years, that I think he wants not anybody that's current, but he's willing to come down and chat with us. So we got to get him on this.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, again, to Jay's point, and the NRC board, again, I've heard from several people, they are more than willing to listen to the people. Mike did a good job saying, do not yell at them, be kind.
Yeah.
No matter what your opinion is, if you want to see a change, and what Doc says later on, I love, and we'll get into that. But if you want to see any change, no matter what you're advocating for, send an email, make your voice heard, because the number one problem that we see in today's society are people going to Facebook groups, writing these. I mean, we've seen in our YouTube comments, like the negative side of all this is what's not going to make any changes. So us coming together as hunters, again, no matter what your decision is or your opinion is, these are the people that will listen to you. So take the time. If you want to see change, send an email. Your voice can be heard. And I will say, us as hunters, no matter what the voice is, if we do unite and make our voice known, things will change. So the next thing we get into with Mike is just I kind of called Mike out a little bit on this, in the episode of the NDA, and what me as I would say a pretty involved hunter actually never knew what the NDA advocated for. So Mike goes into here and he talks about, the NDA's involvement with the state of Michigan and the regulations.
Michigan NDA is always at a meeting, and a lot of work happens during the breaks. Just because we're not talking for that 3 minutes on the MUCC live stream doesn't mean that we're not there working. We're doing the work behind the scenes. It's the 4 hours of phone calls and 10 emails during the month that we're doing. We're doing that communication behind the scenes. The NRC knows our stances. The DNR knows our stances. To your point, though, it makes me question, are we missing out on the opportunity for the general public to be reinforced with those concepts that what we stand by?
So,
yeah, we had Mike and I had an offline conversation about that, and he actually was like, I really appreciated Lee challenged me on that, because I've kind of changed my it's kind of helped me to realize that I want everybody to know where we stand.
Yeah, and to his defense, again, Mike was beyond an astounding person, and to his defense, he's like, I was just never a guy who wanted to go on social media and say, I'm advocating for this. This is what we needed to do. This is the science. He was more, like he said, he's more of a behind the scenes guy who spends the 4 hours a day on the phone.
Yeah.
So
I think he's barking up the right tree versus the guy that's running around and barking up every tree that doesn't do anything. He's being strategic about where he can allocate his time and resources and make moves. But at the same time, he wants to be able to have a public facing.
People should hear it.
Here's
so again, I didn't know what the NDA was advocating for. This next video just simply from Mike says what the NDA actually advocates for as far as whitetail management.
NDA's advocating for, they are correct. They're based in science. So to your point, what are we advocating for right now? Michigan NDA. This is, I'm not trying to make you chuckle, but what does Michigan need? We need to increase antlers harvest where regionally appropriate. We need to protect young bucks. We need to recruit more hunters, and we need to improve habitat and access to land. Period.
I would say that's on board with 80% of Michigan. So how I get that? That's what's so confusing to me is like everybody's on the same page for the most part. Mm-hmm. Again, everybody has their own opinion. Like
how to get that done. They have different ways of getting that done.
APRs,
a lot of ways to skin
whatever.
a cat.
A lot of ways to skin it. But okay, how come none of that? How come the cat's not getting skinned?
I think it's because we are putting our personal interest ahead of the resource. Right now, Michigan hunters, and even stakeholders and leaders and everyone that's at the table, we're our own worst enemy. Mm-hmm. We are aligned 80, 90% on everything. We just have this emotional tie to how it needs to be done. Mm. You say APR and someone slaps you in the face. Mm. You say OBR and...
Those 4 points are massive.
We don't really need to spend much time on this besides the fact that what I think he says at the end is the most crucial thing is... we as hunters just need to come together to make a decision that is going to be better for our resource, not the right or the wrong. Whether you are OBR or APR, we're not saying which one's better. We just need to unite as hunters. I think that's the biggest thing to take away from out of everything Mike says. Come together as hunters. Let's advocate for change to better our resource.
I think, too, though, we really need to, maybe we can throw the 4 points on the screen or something like that. Because, if you read through those 4 points, if we can pull those 4 points out and look at what he's saying there or what they're really advocating for, I think as hunters, we need to understand that as we look at this. And when you and I sat down before this and say, we want to unify people because we want to shoot more does. We know that that's a problem. We need to. We must harvest more does in the state. Like Farm Bureau saying, everybody's saying that. That has to happen. We need to protect young bucks, not because we want to shoot giant bucks in the state of Michigan, because we want to have mature bucks on the landscape, breeding in the appropriate times of the year, and holding fast to the fact that you have natural selection that occurs where the mature bucks get the right to breed and all that kind of stuff. So, and then we want to recruit young hunters. We want to bring in new hunters. We need to improve that. What's the other point? Sorry, I've lost it.
I was hoping you were going to finish it because you were on a roll.
Yeah.
And we need to... We'll put it up on the screen.
We'll get it up. But those 4 points really need to get hammered home. And then I'll go back to preaching from the Bible. James 4 is the reason that the guy with the OBR problem or doesn't like it or APR problem is because it's their personal preference and pleasures that out-trump everything else, and it becomes this emotional game, and it's not about the facts and the reality of what we need to accomplish as a group, of how we're going to accomplish it as a group.
Yeah, it's about making a change to better our resource because it is two people now have said that our resource is not properly managed, more or less. So here again, I just want to quick touch on, I won't have much post conversation on this because, I would say it's pretty self-explanatory. Some of the struggles that we see as a state on why things are challenging to actually make these changes.
Now, there are some small barriers. The concept of suspending the single buck tag. who has the authority to do that? Is it the DNR? Is it the NRC? I can tell you I was on the phone today, and they still haven't really come out with who would have the ability to do
They
that.
literally don't.
It's what I've learned in this deer advocacy world the last couple of years is there's, I'm not going to say politics, but there's a lot of, well, I'm not really certain. There's an answer. I just don't think people want to find the answer right now.
And I think that, again, back to like what Skip said, it sounds like no one wants to be the reason for everybody else to get in. Like there has to be an adult in the room that says, this is the decision that's being made. And it sounds like from what you're saying, it's like, well, I don't know if it's his rule or his rule. I don't want to be the guy that pisses all these people off in Michigan. And
Yep. Very, very well said. I would have to agree with that. And there's another layer. Those of us that are kind of in the trenches right now is currently the AG has an interpretation about the word deer.
What's AG?
Attorney General.
Got it. Just making sure.
And the Attorney General. And deer currently, the current interpretation is a deer must mean a buck or a doe.
Yeah.
And so that's one reason why legally we can't earn a second buck right now. We can't go... there's a lot of things like because really
legally you can't earn a buck.
You have to offer 2 buck tags right now, is the interpretation of the AG.
Okay.
Because of language.
The word deer is being interpreted as has to mean buck and doe. So the combo tag has to be offering 2 bucks, and so that's something that we're navigating right now. Even this recommendation to make the combo tag a buck and a doe and suspending the single buck tag might not be accepted or kosher.
Because there's some language out there
that
confuses deer versus buck.
The word deer is being interpreted currently
Sounds
as
like
buck.
such an easy fix.
As buck.
Right.
Now, if you ask Commissioner Walters and some other people, the word deer to them, it's a species. It's not a particular sex or gender. And so we're in a place right now, and I'll just speak candidly, if the AG's interpretation of deer was viewed as a species, the DNR would be able to recommend any type of buck regulation to the NRC, and the NRC could vote or manipulate anything. Right now, it's a hang-up. That interpretation is having it so we can't do something like earn a second buck. Right now, we have to offer 2 buck tags according to that interpretation, unless we come up with a creative workaround, such as the super APR. And that just shows how the system is imperfect. You know what I mean? You just the single interpretation of a word deer allows or disallows the advocacy for certain management tactics that could be extremely effective for the resource.
Yeah.
And then when you're asking people, well, why is that the interpretation? Or how does that interpretation change? And no one really knows the answer. That's a little scary. That makes you question things.
Yeah.
Why is it so difficult to get a concrete answer? I think it goes back to what you said. No one wants to be the adult in the room to make the bad decisions.
Yeah, so the only reason I wanted to bring that up is because, to shed light on, these changes can be a little more complicated rather than us saying we think this is the right way to manage our deer herd. And there's some higher level stuff that needs to be addressed, whether obviously very clearly stating that it shouldn't be this hard, but it is this hard. So just wanted to shed some light on that. People say, like, why don't we just go to 1 buck rule? Technically, legally, we can't.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but as we kind of went through in that full episode, if you're confused and don't know what a deer is versus what a buck is and what a doe is and all that kind of stuff, I mean, it's unfortunate that our AG is at that place, and it's unfortunate that me personally, my own looking at all this is like, as a country that we want to govern ourselves, that like I've stepped away from that completely because it's just obnoxious. So I don't even know, I didn't even know who the AG was, at this point in time, because it's like, now I have to, now I'm getting into that stuff again, but it's like, man, so we do need to be involved. To what degree? I think it's up to the individual and how much.
Yeah, 100%. And I just wanted to bring that up to say, like, there's a reason some things may or may not work, and that's just above, I guess, I mean, I would safe to say it's above what we have control over. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that to me, I don't know if it's above we have control over. It's just that it's a very broken system that needs some help, and it's held together with bubble gum and duct tape, and it can snap at any point. And so it's like, we just need to advocate for what we want in a healthy manner.
I like that. Cool. Yeah, next one is, again, just another, Mike makes a really good point here that I thought was good to reflect on.
To this point, I'll go on a little bit of a soapbox that you brought that up, is this immediate gratification in this blame game. Blame the DNR. Blame the NRC. They're not the ones pulling the trigger. They're not the one letting the arrow fly. Just because Michigan could become a $6 state, hypothetically, everybody, doesn't mean you have to go out there and shoot $6. Does the DNR have a responsibility to manage the resource? Yes. Does the NRC have the responsibility to put toward laws and regulations that make sense, that are science-based? Yes. However, we are the stewards of the land. We are the stewards of the resource. Let's stop playing the blame game and start taking responsibility for our own herd management and habitat management.
Simply put.
Yeah, and I think we talked about that a little bit with Skip earlier, but I think it only goes as far as our land and our hunting availability. And so I think self-regulations are really, really important. But I go back to the 7 pillars and realize it's not just the landowner's responsibility.
Correct.
And oftentimes that's what then it would fall on, and then you become yours and mine. This is it. And so yes, it's a great point. We do need, it does start with us. But it also is a collective working together.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why I wanted to shed light on it again, is because just because we already talked about if something's legal doesn't make it right. And we'll get into more of this when we review Doc's messaging, but this is why we're doing this, is to educate people to have the potential ability to make these decisions in the field. I agree with Skip saying go back to the pillars, there needs to be rules and regulations, but almost equally as important, people need to be educated on the topics. Next video.
And there's also something that I've seen in the last few years, and you started off this chat with that, is, well, the NRC was given a menu of 10 or 11 things last year, and a lot of them weren't put forth. Some of the members of the NRC aren't necessarily satisfied with the options that they're being given. And so some people on the NRC they think that they need to take more autonomy and more control and be that catalyst for change, even though it might not be something the DNR advocated for or recommended in their wildlife order. Change is hard. We know that. Growth is hard. Changing mindsets is difficult. But do we want to continue being the laughingstock in the Midwest?
Right.
Do we truly care about the resource?
Go ahead.
I feel like, to Mike's point, I mean, this is what's really kind of resonating with me, is dude, I'm making decisions about investing in land outside of this state because of the mismanagement of our resource. Really? We want those taxes. We want all that stuff brought back to our state. We want hunters to stay here and want to be here. The amount of guys that are leaving and going and having to find, being able to participate in good deer movement throughout the entirety of the season. And that I would say, if that alone could be the argument that I would like to make, is that we can experience a full season. We can actually see deer movement in their natural, what they want to do. They're not nocturnal. They're crepuscular. So we make them nocturnal by the way that we hunt them and use and abuse them. And so it's just, I want to see Michigan flip and change and become the state where people long to go to because we didn't even talk about it earlier. Go back and watch the full Skip episode, but him talking about what's going on in our state from a habitat to ag ratio, what's really available. Really, we have an awesome opportunity to be a great whitetail state.
Yeah.
Not a laughingstock.
Yeah. I think what I was going to say about that is like, apparently I took something totally different on that. Is like, I felt like what he was saying was, the NRC gets presented things that, they think just need to be fleshed out more and more articulated. And
you got a voice. And if you say it,
you got a voice. Like we as hunters,
communicate well.
If we unite and stop saying this, I want it my way. And if we unite and give them something reasonable, then it's likely to change. Next one from Mike.
People think harvesting mature deer is all about inches and the antlers. We've all been blessed, I believe, to interact with a mature Michigan buck.
Man killed a 5-year-old this year.
They act different.
Yeah.
They move different. They think different. The accomplishment that you feel doing that is amazing. How are we being selfish? We're passing up everything younger for the pursuit for that rare animal because we want to interact with it. Andy.
Yeah. I hate that we have to justify ourselves for some of this stuff. We've been, I would say, labeled as trophy hunters. Yeah. And I hate that we have to justify ourselves. I just want to, again, stress the point that regardless of the antler size, and again, we'll get into this from a biologist saying the exact same thing, regardless of antler size, we are aiming to increase the overall age structure of the Michigan whitetail deer. So simply put, I think Mike said it very, very well there. So Mike starts getting into actual statistics and some numbers regarding some things. And he also makes a really good point on some management practices here.
And the one thing, like going back to that number, the average hunter in Michigan wants 1.4, 1.5, 1.6 deer. I don't know if we can, in areas of high density, I don't know if we can manage our way out of those. Because that's one thing, that's why you see these articles, people are getting mad about sharpshooters or, doing this sort of thing. Well, if the hunters aren't going to do it, we're kind of to blame. If we're not going to go out there and be the ones to do it, we can't complain them when, unfortunately, other resources and tools come in to manage what we chose not to manage. I know that's hard for hunters to hear.
This comes out. I was surprised by that when he said the average hunter, what he said, wants 1 point.
No, they harvest 1.5.
No, they want, I thought is what he said. They want. They don't. Whether they harvest or what they want. What he's saying is it's not enough in areas of high deer density. People need to take initiative to properly manage their deer herd based on their specific area. Again, very site specific is what he's saying.
Yeah.
And what I thought was really eye-opening is like, if we don't do this, if we as the people do not take the time to properly manage our herd, the government will step in other ways to manage it for us, and we will not like it.
Oh yeah, that's the argument that I kind of go back to, is that okay, if the DNR is afraid, the DNR is concerned, the teams, all these different resources and all that kind of stuff, like Skip was saying, they know that they have a problem. Historically, what has been their reaction? It's been, in my opinion, knee-jerk, extend the season, do this, throw a Band-Aid at it, try that, do this, do a test over here, do a test over there, bring in sharpshooters, shoot these deer off, and so it's like, I think people are going to be much, much, much more upset when the DNR and the legislation all comes down and it just says,
you guys are not doing your...
Yeah, we're going to wipe out a massive segment of this population of deer, and we're going to give away way more crop permits. We're going to do all these different things. People aren't going to be happy.
I mean, I will this has actually just happened. My buddies are all fruit farmers. Some of my close friends are fruit farmers, ag farmers. And they just got 25 depredation tags. And I literally looked at them like, I would be so upset if I was a neighbor, because that they as farmers are taking control of a situation because we as hunters are not. There's too many deer in the area for the deer to give them 25 tags and say, go. Do you know how many of those deer that they're being shot are bucks? And how, forgive me for my lack of words, but for how unethical that is to go out and shoot a deer when what we're trying to advocate for is to properly manage the deer herd. Like, they're going to shoot deer, not saying this is a mature deer, this is a young deer, this is a whatever. They're just controlling numbers, and the outcome of that can be really bad. So, yeah, I think if somebody takes anything from this, it's like, we do have a duty as outdoorsmen in the woods, and we need to own it.
Yeah, and I think to me it goes back to the one buck rule. Like, I think at the minimum, it motivating people to pull the trigger or let the arrow fly, as Mike said, on a doe, is what would push me to want that.
So this next point that Mike brings up, I really liked it. I thought it was pretty eye-opening. And again, when we're talking about properly managing your deer herd, this is a pretty, again, eye-opening thing that he says here.
Remember, it's 7 votes. Those individuals appointed by the governor, 3 of which go as Democratic Party, 3 are Republicans, and 1 is in the middle, neutral. That is how regulations happen. And think about that. 7 people determine
How many
the
deer
laws
were
and
tagged?
regulations for wildlife in Michigan.
I still think it's wild.
It is still wild. And we as hunters and outdoorsmen, conservationists, however we want to label ourselves, if we cannot collectively get together to make a decision on what is right for our herd, set our personal opinions, or not personal opinions, but our personal wants and desires of how it gets done,
emotions,
set that aside, come together as hunters. All we have to do is, imagine, I don't know how many deer hunters there are in Michigan, but thousands of people coming together as one voice to swing 7 people. How is this not more simple?
Yeah, I'm going to keep going back to it. And so, I would encourage anybody that's watching this right now is check your emotions. Because when I'm getting emotionally fired up about a certain topic and offended or want a certain thing, it's my pleasure and my wants that are being attacked. And so it's like, before you, we want you to comment on our video. I don't care how you comment on our videos and all that kind of stuff. Before you comment, check your own self and say, is this emotion why I'm firing this off, or is this logic? And so, because I believe, Lee, to your point, to really get us united, we have to set our emotions aside.
Yes.
We can't do this on emotion. We can't we can't come to those 7 people and sound like we are in our sound mind and actually have a sound mind. We sound crazy. We're all yelling at each other and arguing with each other, and no one's just going to those 7 people and saying, here's a nice little plan.
We as the Michigan hunters have come together to better our deer herd, and this is what we think.
Yeah.
Or this is what we advocate.
Yeah.
It's 7 people.
Yeah.
Should be easy.
Yeah.
So now the next one we want to get into, again, Mike talked about what the DA team is. So just quick touching on what the DA team, and I think at this point they have officially presented it to the DNR. So this is what the DAT team has presented to the DNR. Or,
you think that?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Going back to the
go through the flow chart.
The really important question
Yeah.
is there's a 98% chance. So I'm saying there's a 98% chance our DAT team, Deer Advisory Team, for both peninsulas is going to, Jordan Hoover and I are going to put together a formal recommendation on behalf of our DAT team to go to the DNR that is advocating for the combo tag being a buck and a doe with the suspension of the single buck tag for the next 3-year cycle. When Jordan and I give that recommendation to the DNR, they might come back and go, hey, you got to tweak some words here for legality things. It's not changing what it is, and then the NRC will know what our recommendations were. Why am I saying 98%? Because I don't count my chickens before they hatch. Yeah. There is a possibility, there are 2% possibility some weird tomfoolery happens amongst our team, and it gets completely sabotaged. However, would it shock me that the regulation for this next upcoming season involved Michigan hunters only being able to harvest 1 buck? It would not shock me at all. I don't know how that cat is going to get skinned, but it would not shock me. I think there's too much pressure.
A lot of pressure.
There's too much pressure. And not even that, the science and the need is there.
When you talk about science, where is the, I'm sorry, is it the DAT?
DAT.
DAT.
Yep.
Where's the DAT and or the NDA getting the science from? Where does that come from?
So with the DAT team, we were given, during the DMI process, the DNR put together, we had experts and specialists from every walk of life in terms of deer management. Recently, we had Mike Tonk, who's the old biologist for Ohio, that was on with us. And obviously, Ohio is a 1-buck state. And that was some of the data that was given to us from him it is what needed. Now, some people you see on social media, well, why do we need only 1 buck? Why not have 2? Only, depending on the year, only 3 to 8% of people harvest a second buck. Mental, cultural shift. If you can only purchase a combo tag that is a buck and a doe, mentally you're going to go, okay, I harvest a buck, I have that doe tag that is there. Is that going to be the magic pill and panacea for our ills in Michigan? No. It's one of the levers. There are multiple things that need to happen in Michigan to really move the needle. Mm-hmm. If we go to a 1-buck state, is it going to fix everything? No. Will it slowly and gradually increase antlers harvest? Yes. Will people be holding out for a better deer? Yeah. Could it move age classes up? Yes, it could.
Yeah, so that is what the DAT team, and I left part of that in there just because like my original like scope on them was like they're just a bunch of like uneducated people that got chosen to sit on this board and throw stuff at the DNR. Sounds like that they do take the time to be educated on their decisions. So I left that part in there of him saying they met with biologists in there to give them a little credibility, saying they are taking the effort to be educated on these topics when they present them to the DNR.
Well, that and they're taking the time, their most precious resource, right now to advocate. And so I applaud them for doing that, and I'm thankful for them. And again, we might have differences of opinions on how to do these kind of things, and they might differ. And this is where I'm going to go back to it, is that site-specific regulations really, at the end of the day, and we'll hear it from Doc later, but it's unfortunate that we think that because we break up the units, even though the units cost the same to manage with more, but if we make smaller units and smaller zones, it's going to cost us more to manage. And that's where we're sticking our hands up, where I would say we're sticking our hands up as a business, for-profit business, that the state wants to hire us to manage a county and take inventory with our technology to be able to better understand herd movement and all that kind of stuff and what's going on in there. We'd stick our hand up for that all day long, to be able to get that to the government and say, here's consistent deer information tracking processes that we could build out for a county and make sure that we're knocking that out of the park. And then we can make informed decisions based on that.
Exactly. I do like that at the very end that he mentioned what did he did he mention at the very end of that?
I don't know. My wisdom was so profound that you lost track.
That's probably what it was. So I'll just move on to the next one. Okay. So again, what he mentioned is a $1 rule the proper thing for
all?
He says no, maybe not, but it is a pillar to move forward.
Yeah.
And that is what we're looking to do. Again, we're beating this bush, and I want to make this very clear. We're not advocating for one thing and saying this is correct. We're advocating for change.
Yeah.
The next one, show some love to the APR guys. I thought he just brought some very knowledgeable science-based answers regarding APR. Is there any science behind, or maybe you don't know this, but any science behind APR restrictions, or why they could or why they may not work?
Yeah, so Michigan NDA Michigan QDMA for a while. Eric Schnell at our helm, we were really pushing for APRs, and the argument for APRs is obviously it'll get deer to an older age class. Really shifting them from 1.5 to 2.5, and then some slip through to 3 or 4. In my belief, it increases antlerless harvest, but with the CWD experiment, the confidence intervals were so wide that the DNR did. You guys remember that? Like with the CWD experiment, there were 5 counties that were looked at. Kent County and Newaygo County did not have APRs. Montcalm, Mecosta, and Ionia did. And don't quote me, but pre-APR, Mecosta, Montcalm, and Ionia were roughly at about a 0.8 doe per buck. And after the experiment, the numbers were 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. As logical people, you would think, well, antlerless harvest increased, which you would want to see and have in a diseased area. However, the algorithm and the confidence intervals that the statisticians used were so wide, the 1,000 increase in antlerless harvest didn't meet the confidence intervals. You'd have to harvest 10,000 more doe.
Define confidence intervals.
I'm not a statistician. Yeah. It's the margin of error. And so it was, they were so wide that even if a particular county had 1,000 more doe harvested during that experiment,
it wasn't going to put a blip on it.
It was going to put a blip on it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one thing personally that I thought was flawed with that study, and that's why the DNR will say APRs do not increase antlerless
doe
harvest.
harvest.
Yes.
Okay, so it's safe to say APRs are good for increasing the age structure of antlered bucks.
Yes.
They just lack in the harvest of non-antlered deer.
I can't say that because I've lived it and witnessed. I've seen an increase in antlerless harvest. I'm saying the data from the study that the DNR conducted, they can't say it did it with any real margin because the confidence intervals were so big. Talking about APRs, if I was to say this right now, I think we should take away APRs in the Northwest 13. Oh, someone's keying my truck right now.
Someone's keying.
He lives right down the road. He's running here.
But why would someone go out there and stab my tires? Because they don't want it taken away, because they see that there's a benefit to it. What I would love to have happen from that CWD experiment is the confidence intervals were not so large, and the DNR said, yep, antlerless harvest does increase with APRs. Now, conversely, during that experiment time, you had Newaygo County and Kent County. They were at 0.7 and 0.8 doe per buck. And after the 3-year study, they were still at 0.7 or 0.8 doe per buck. But Montcalm, Mecosta, and Ionia all got above 1. Well, a redneck would look at it and go, well, antlerless harvest increased. Not according to the statisticians, because the confidence interval was so large.
There was good deer in those counties.
Son, you didn't grow this year, but Dad, I grew an inch. Well, you needed to grow a foot.
Yeah.
So you didn't grow.
You're not
That's
on the
confidence
team.
intervals.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of light shed on that.
Well, that's just bad. That's actually a proof point to me of bad math, bad science. So like that is where it's a hard thing to weed out, is that when you don't really do a study well and you have the intervals spread out like that, you to his point, like the best point that he made at the very end there, it's like, hey son, you need to grow a foot this year. And then you set it all up for failure, and you say, you need to grow, and you didn't grow a foot, so you didn't grow, but you really grew 6 inches. Like, that's not failure. And so it's unfortunate, but I would say that this gets into a deeper heart of like, they didn't want it to work.
That's very interesting that you look at it that way, because the way that I potentially like wrongfully understood it was they saw these variables and it did not increase doe harvest enough for them to say this was the best decision to move forward with, because the intervals only went up so much, and they're saying we need to get the doe numbers to this point, and by doing the APR restrictions, it didn't get to that point. So I guess that's the way I understood it. It was like, it works. APRs increase the age structure of animals. It does increase doe harvest or antlerless harvest, but not enough.
Yeah, I would say that they just set themselves up for failure, so it wasn't going to ever be enough. And so
why do they set themselves up?
Because if you set that interval so great in such a vast thing, and you don't really have if you said you wanted to increase it by tenfold, then you had to pull more levers to get it to tenfold. You had to do something else to get it there. But they didn't set that. They didn't say they wanted it to increase by tenfold. They just wanted to see that it would increase. And thus it did increase. And so then they said it didn't increase enough, but we never really set a goal to what it should increase to.
Back to no one rule is the end all.
Right. And you can't, and then and that's why I say this is such a system of multiple rules coming into play with each other, and they have to work with each other. And you can't say, most people would say, well, if you make one variable in a scientific study, you can only have one variable of change at the same time. Yeah, I totally understand that. I'm not a scientist. I'm not anything, but I get that. And you can't make too many changes because then you don't know what may cause the change. But at the same time, it's a multitude of things that need to change to get this done. And if you just do one of them and you don't get the outcome that you're desiring, now that one isn't successful. And that's what I'm saying is happening with that APR thing, is like, you didn't get the outcome. So we throw the baby out with the bathwater. We don't do another study in another 3 counties and to see what happens there. And I would say, in doing so, doing that next study, actually make the intervals a shorter thing, put a target on it, and give all of those guys in that county a free buck doe tag, a free antlerless tag.
Well, you can't do that because that'll defund Michigan.
I'm saying in those 3 counties,
yes.
I'm just giving it a suggestion of what you do.
Yeah, interesting. I'm glad that you shed that light on that, because when I heard that, I took it totally differently. And I think people will appreciate you explaining that way. The next one that we dive into, I thought was pretty mind-blowing, and it will, again, this little clip is just here to educate.
I think increasing antlerless harvest, buck regulation would help. I really think, but a cultural shift's more important. Having people understand that you need to harvest 1/3 of your adult doe in a herd just to remain status quo. And that's one thing I talk about a lot with farmers who ask questions about antlerless harvest. And so you're telling me if I have 90 doe, I need to shoot 30 just to maintain status quo? Yes, sir. That blows people's minds.
Yeah. That blew my mind. I guess I didn't know the actual correct amount of doe that you need to annually harvest to maintain the deer herd.
Yeah.
I do know people with 90 deer on their property. And can you imagine going and shooting 30 does off of that just to maintain it?
I've seen so many properties with so many deer where I'm like, guys, I don't even know what to tell you. Like, I mean, your browse species are just destroyed. The only reason these deer are here is because you have ag and food plots and all that kind of stuff all throughout here, and this is a critter, this is an animal that will eat itself out of house and home, and then all sorts of stuff happens. So yeah, I was aware of that statistic, and so but at the same time, I'm like, we're not in a place right now with 10 doe tags where we can manage ourselves out of this.
No, but I think that, the reason that we're in this position is because
we didn't know.
We didn't know, and the rules and regulations leading up to this point.
Right. Like that's where I'm saying
this is not a properly managed herd, and this is the cause of that.
But that's where we go back to those numbers that you brought up of the number of harvests.
Yeah.
If that switches, 10 doe, I'm not required to carry 10 doe tags because my neighbors are all going to shoot a doe with one. And this is why I'm advocating for one buck, is the idea of antlerless harvest going through the roof. And so that's where I'm saying 1 year of it, I do agree that 3 years would greatly benefit, and then there might be a shift that it really happens, and we see all sorts of cool stuff that comes with it. But I'm saying if 1 year of one buck and we just saw doe harvest go through the roof, hockey stick, that would be enough for me, because you can't give me enough doe tags, and a guy just doesn't have enough time to shoot 30 deer.
Yeah. Yeah, we could get into like why there's so many flaws of having to shoot that many deer, but we'll save that for another podcast I have planned out. Next, this is kind of like the last one from Mike, and I thought it was a good one.
But going back is, as deer hunters, we're at each other's throats. We need to have conversations like this. We need to get involved. We need to see what we have in common and take our strengths and utilize them together. Otherwise, we're going to continue to be on a sinking ship. Mm-hmm. We're at each other's throats, and we have so much more in common. And
yeah, simply put, we have a lot of stuff in common.
That's why we're doing this video.
This is why we're doing this video. So, next one, I thought that for one, this was just pretty amazing that Doc, aka Dr. Deer, aka Dr. James Carroll, and his good friend Wayne Sitton, it's pretty amazing that they decided to actually have a conversation with us. I think it sheds light on how important this matter actually is.
Yeah.
Again, we're a new podcast with zero voice, just a couple hillbillies in Michigan that are sitting together talking about deer hunting. And for somebody who spent, those two combined have over 50 years of deer biology under their belt. And for them to say, yes, we want to come on your podcast because this is a issue and we want to talk about it, speaks volumes to the matter. So, let's get into our conversation with Dr. James Carroll. And what is the definition of a well-managed deer herd?
Well, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Well-managed deer herd. Well, first of all, I'll just walk you through what we tell everybody what we do. You start with a goal. What is your goal? And then from that goal, you develop a plan of how you're going to achieve or arrive at that goal. To do that, you have to have ways to gauge and determine how your success or where you are in that plan. We call those metrics. So a big part of science-based deer management is collecting scientifically valid information about your deer herds. And of course, that all deer management is site specific. So that means that you've got to go at least to the county level. And within that county, a lot of times even the landowner level. So deer management is a three-legged stool. One leg stands for population management, another leg stands for habitat management, and the third leg stands for people. And people have been left out of the equation in most states that I work in. It's Leopold involved them, and so everybody forgot about people. And that's why a lot of these folks run against things. Get back to the theme that you asked. Very few states really do scientific deer management. Leopold said that agencies have the authority to set seasons and bag limits, but they don't control the land on which the deer live. And that's the big important thing, is not involving the people in it. So
I love what he said here. It's kind of twofold to, I guess, Skip is very, like, rules and regulations need to be set in place, but to Doc's point, people just need to be educated so that because they, to a property specific level, they can be educated on what is the proper way to manage the deer herd.
Yeah, I think I took it another way too in looking at it, and it's like we have to look at all three legs of the stool, and to Skip's point, to Doc's point, to Mike's point, we have a role in this, and so the people portion of it. How do we interact with the deer? How do we do it? How do we take responsibility for it? But at the same time, regulations are going to take effect. They're going to take a play in this. And then the population is going to take a play in this. And so, like, how do we work this all together to make it a stool that we can actually sit on?
Yeah.
And it doesn't fall apart.
Exactly. So this next part about Doc is, again, fine-tuning how to properly manage a deer herd is basically what I asked him. So we'll get into his answer here.
You don't really manage a deer herd, you fine-tune one. You set a goal, you establish your metrics, and we can talk about metrics. And then you collect information on those metrics, and you say, all right, did we move towards our goal, or did we move away from our goal? And if we moved towards our goal, then we enhance it and do a little more. And if we went backwards, then we back off of it. So you have to fine tune a management program for geographic regions.
I just think this was great because, again, it just sheds light again on maybe a one buck rule is not the best answer for Michigan, but you set a rule, you see what happens over the course of time, and then you make adjustments from there.
So, like, to me, it's reinforcing what I said about the 3-county test that they did with the APRs to see if it would increase doe. Okay? You pulled a lever, you set a goal that you could not manage to, and then you saw an uptick, but then our state chose to do nothing additional. What he's saying is you fine-tune it. Exactly. And to my point, you need to continue to press into that to make a difference. You don't just say, now we're done.
Yes.
Like, that's not deer management. That's not fine-tuning something. That's just saying, oh, it didn't work. Throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Here's another deer season.
Let's make it longer. Maybe you'll kill more. Yeah. Let's discount the tags in the late season. They know that they need to kill more deer. So more antlerless deer. So let's make it so we can.
Yep. I think that, the way that I see it is they're such in a panic to make these things happen that they're trying to potentially have results faster than what you literally physically can have results.
I think it's because they don't actually trust that it'll get done.
Yeah.
And so that's the problem. They're fearful that and so it's like, they want to please people, and then they're fearful that it's not going to actually happen the way that they want it to happen.
Which I take as a direct correlation to this is our fault as hunters. Because if they're looking at the stuff and saying, we tried to do this, but like you as hunters were not doing a good enough job, we have to pull a Band-Aid off and or we have to pull that out and find something else drastically different. I think we can take some blame for that as hunters.
Sure.
Yeah. So this next one that Doc talks about, you made the simple question here that I thought was great for him to answer.
So could you answer just real quickly? What are some of the downside, maybe 3 of the worst downsides to the yearling bucks doing the majority of the breeding?
Well, first of all, you put a lot of stress. First of all, if the young bucks are doing a lot of breeding, that is a red flag that you're over harvesting your bucks. Okay, pure and simple. The damage that it does is that they're like a teenage kid. Their hormones are all messed up. They're not intended to endure the stress that puts on us. The rut is stressful.
Yeah.
A doe has to run for like 36 hours. A buck runs for the entire, whatever the rut is, the rut season. And the rut is far more complicated than what most people think it is. So it puts tremendous stress on your deer, increases mortality. Also the hunting, that means that people are killing almost everything over a yearling. And it puts a tremendous load on the teenagers to do the breeding. Mm-hmm. And what God meant to happen there is to have deer fight their way up to maturity. And the ones that get to maturity are the ones that are best suited to survive out there. They have the best traits. Mm. They have that. So you can degrade a herd very quickly. Genetically, you can degrade a herd by killing off the older age class bucks.
I think if you can't agree with a biologist with over 50 years of experience saying it is not right for a 1.5-year-old deer to be doing a majority of the breeding, and then look at Michigan and say that is what's happening in Michigan, none of these are advocating for antler size of deer.
Yeah.
We are advocating for proper
deer health.
Yes.
Health of the herd.
Again.
And the benefit of chasing mature deer.
Yes.
And seeing them on their natural habitat doing what they would naturally do.
What the Lord put them on this earth.
Yeah.
How they're supposed to be doing it.
And in natural selection that only the strong will survive, and you won't have all of these, you're going to have anomalies in the APR restrictions and stuff like that where you have an injured buck and he doesn't meet the requirements and all that kind of stuff and goofiness. But when you have natural selection, where you have a mature buck, he will dominate that space, he will own that space, and he will be the one that does the majority of the breeding as God designed.
So this next one, again, I want to, as a biologist who has devoted his life on science-based answers, when he talks about this next thing, you can see he gets excited. He leans into this. And this is just to touch on what we just said here. But I want to, again, this is a biologist who bases everything off science, gets fired up about this.
Yes. And that drives me crazy to hear people say, managing for older age class bucks, you're trophy managing. No, you're not. You're managing for it's called what we call natural deer herd. And the hunter in this country, we have a lot of problems with agencies, but I also have some problems with hunters. We've got to make the transition from hunter consumer to hunter manager. We're losing support out there. We're losing hunters. And if we don't make that transition before long, we're going to be replaced by probably something we're going to be talking about, and that is other predators. Mm-hmm. I guarantee you that.
Yeah, that sharpshooters, whatever it is, the hunter is the problem. He's not getting the job done. And
he did call out we as hunters are not doing a good job.
I think that big shift that he's trying, that like we don't hear enough, is consumer versus, what did he say? Manager. Like we need to make that shift. And I would just ask everybody to check their heart as they're listening to this. Like, as you hear us, when you start to hear those things that, these guys are just trophy hunters. These guys are just trophy hunters. Okay, no. We're not just trying to consume the resource. We want to manage the resource. And so we're asking you to make the shift in your own heart that it's like, wait, okay, I guess they're not just after the big antler deer, which we do enjoy and we do have fun and we do praise God when we get to encounter those and we get to harvest those. We're not saying we don't do those things. We're not saying we don't set our goals to go do that. but our overarching goal of managing the herd and being managers of it, not just consumers of it.
Exactly. So the next one I asked Wayne, how does the rut look when you harvest the correct amount of mature does, the correct amount and the proper age class of does, once they had a healthy buck to doe ratio in their hunting area?
As far as the rut goes, the rut with a young age class of doe and mature bucks, it gets crazy pretty quick. It's pretty intense. The rut on that club now and other properties we manage up here, our rut will start and be over when other places they hadn't even started yet. The trickle rut, which you hear so much about, we have some of that, but that's your younger deer coming into estrus versus something that got missed. The ratios were closer, so everything gets bred on time. Our fawn crop hits the ground pretty consistently. If we can have a 10-day or 14-day solid rut, then we have a 10 to 14-day, birthing window, and that cuts down on predation. So I think that's from a health standpoint, from a reproduction standpoint, that's probably the success. From a hunter standpoint, they can set a blind and they've got 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 mature bucks to pick from, which is, if the bosses are happy, that loosens the purse strings and you can continue on with your program. So that's kind of what it's all about. They hunt antlers, sure. I mean, we get accused of that, antler hunters, trophy hunters, whatever the case may be. But I've always viewed, a trophy buck as a byproduct of good management. I mean, we don't set in to grow a bunch of nice bucks. I mean, that's the end result. But they come from some genetics. But you bring them into the world on time. You treat them right. You feed them. They'll be what they're going to be in 5 or 6 years if you let them go. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the part people are missing. It's the result of a good managed deer herd to get mature bucks, and you'll get some trophies out of that for sure.
Yeah, I think that big part that resonated with me in that part is a good practice of deer management results in trophy bucks. And so that's just a part of it. And
yeah, what I was going to touch on is like, again, I hate to bring up, some people have not hunted out of state, but if you've been in a state when you hit the rut, it is tenfold, so much a better experience. It's so much more exciting. You see, I got this one time, I had like 4 mature deer chasing a doe.
Yeah.
You would never see that in Michigan. Like
sorry.
Go ahead. I was just saying, it was just simply like, it's an experience that people in Michigan don't understand that they're missing out on.
And somebody's going to make a comment on this, and I 100% know it, and I'm totally good with you making a comment on this, because you've experienced rattling antlers and having a buck fly out of the brush in Michigan. But how many guys really, everybody comment on that. If you rattled in Michigan and drug in a deer, say something in the comments behind. How many guys would love to go rattle some antlers and have some bucks come flying out of some thickets and have some things actually go break wild in this state? And if we got the does to where they need to be in that appropriate fashion, you'll experience that. It's not because everybody's out there smashing antlers together.
This year in Kansas, it was so funny because I kept thinking in the back of my mind, man, I am rattling too much. But if I would see a deer off in the distance, I'd be like, man, that's a nice deer. I want to see if I can get him closer to make a decision if I'm going to harvest that deer. I would rattle. That deer would like stop on a dime. And I would say it was over 70% of the time that deer would come to me. Wild. You just don't have that in Michigan. And that is a pure result of mismanaged deer.
Yeah.
And mismanaged age structure.
Yeah.
Okay, again, just shed some light on Wayne. he manages 24,000 acres ranch in Upper Michigan. So what we're getting into on this next clip was when he stepped in and made these changes, we asked him, how did it go with the evolution of getting every one of those hunters on board for harvesting more doe and more mature bucks? So this is more personal to the people. Again, he came in, if you looked at this as Michigan as a whole, as a hunt club.
Yeah. We're talking about, I just want to go back to Doc's analogy of the stool. This is the person side of the stool.
Yes.
But as far as the people go, like Doc will tell you, that was the toughest one. Habitat was easy. Population control was easy, but the people part had to come first. They had to buy into that. I started in September. November came. Never been through a deer hunt there before. So we had a first day. I was over where they hang the deer up, and one of the members said, "Man, this is our best season yet, opening day." And okay, well that's great. As I stood there in awe of what they had killed, and they did 25 or 30, but they were spike horns, yearling doe. He said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Well, I think if we were in the South, we'd probably all be in jail right now." And they didn't take that kindly. So we had a year of education. But these guys, great bunch of guys, they bought into it quick. And then we started shooting doe, more food plots, better timber management. And they've came a long ways. Now they're some of the best hunters in the country. I mean, they take it serious. They want to shoot a mature buck. If there's a 3-year-old comes out in front of them, they sip on their coffee and watch it walk away, which is great. They've harvested a lot of doe for us over the years. We use them to, along with staff, we use the membership, and the guys got really, really good at that.
Simply put, change is not easy, but when a better result becomes from the change and people start to recognize it.
And that's what I keep saying is like the APR guys, thank you for making the drum, beating the drum as hard as you did and getting the changes that you've seen, because all of the taxidermists in this state are saying we're seeing improvement. We're seeing these things. And so what's happened is the APR guys, you got out there, you got those things done, you pushed them through, and now we've seen positive change. We're seeing it happen. And now, we need to continue that movement in the right direction. Yep. And as we do, we'll see another wave of people going, all right, we're on board. Let's keep going.
Yeah. So let's keep going.
A state agency cannot manage a deer herd by just setting seasons and bag limits. That has not worked. The other thing I have to say, more importantly, is to all of these folks out there that have opinions about $1, $2 limits, all this stuff. The first question I have for them is, are you happy with deer hunting as it now exists in Michigan? Are you happy? And I don't know what the answer will be. And the next thing is, how did it get there? How did it get there? Everybody's guilty. The agency is guilty because all they thought was that you just set seasons and bag limits. The hunters are guilty because they think, well, I hunt on 20 acres, I should be able to kill 2 bucks. It all goes back to participating the public in deer management. It's going back to an attitude that deer management is site specific. I got them to do that when I was the so-called deer czar of Wisconsin. Got the agency to do that, but guess what? They insidiously and slowly managed to get it back to the old ways where they had these big deer management units, and all they're doing is setting seasons and bag limits. If the answer is involving, I don't know, Wayne, what's the percentage of private land in Michigan? It's 95 in Texas.
Oh, I don't know that I know that. It's not that high, but it's lower than that.
But it's pretty high. is involved in getting out there and working with the landowners. And let me add this. One of those landowners is the public. And so they're the people that use the public land. So they should be considered as a landowner too. But involving the public in the management process is the key.
I like that he mentioned we're not just talking about private landowners as well. This is, if you hunt public land, you are considered a manager of the land. Mm-hmm. That is your land that you are hunting, is the public land. Manage that correctly. And just, I was very curious. Michigan is 61% privately owned.
Mm. Good job.
Yeah. But on that too is, again, Doc made a point. All these rules and regulations are different opinions. It just comes down to educating ourselves as well. Like, the state's going to set, we've discussed this, the state is going to set guidelines, and we both, I think, are agreeing that it needs to happen. But the education of the individual is, as according to Doc, as potentially, well, he, in his opinion, it's greater than what the state guidelines or rules are. It trumps that.
Yeah, I think we've kind of circled this wagon enough where it's like we know something has to happen, and that's why I'm saying it is happening. It's moving. Let's continue it moving. Let's bring ourselves together. Let's be one voice. Let's not be so many voices. Let's not be so emotional about this. Let's. I get it.
Yeah. Doc says unite.
Because this whole video is about unifying, and it doesn't mean we're going to agree. Unity does not mean agreeing on everything. Unity means that we can be one voice and speak for each other and not hate each other. And we will still disagree on point to point. Unity in your marriage doesn't mean that everything that your wife says you're going to agree with and you guys are going to be 100%. But you're unified to raise your children, to love them, to feed them, and do all the things that's required. And so that's why I wanted to make that point, is that we're not always going to agree on everything. And we're not, but we got to stop hating each other and stop keying each other's cars and stabbing each other's tires because we talk about $1. Like, that was the point I was trying to make at the end.
I think it's the perfect out of this. I think it's a great ending. And again, we're here to have these conversations, educate, reflect, and let's all be the reason for change, and let's better our resource. So we appreciate you guys listening. I hope that you enjoyed this podcast. We could get some really negative comments on this. I feel like it's slightly unique. I didn't think we were going to do this, but it was just drawn to us to do this. Yeah. So
yeah. And shout out whoever commented on the shed antler, whoever wanted to know where that's from. Well, we just changed the display. You don't get to know where it's from. We're just going to tell you that we shout out to Antler Anchor, because now we have a cool new display of that same shed. So
yes,
we're just throwing that in there.
Yep, absolutely. So seriously, guys, appreciate listening. If you want a voice, send an email. Yeah, respectful email with education.
Not to us.
Not to us. If you want to us.
Yeah.
We're getting emails. I appreciate you guys sending emails.
But I'm saying we don't want you to think that we're collecting those and then doing something with them. We are interacting with you, and we're happy to hear your opinion and like that. But I'm just wanted to be clear that, like, we're not taking this and then going to the NRC with stuff, and, like, we're just not at that place yet.
Yeah. So if you want more of these stuff, or if you guys do appreciate the conversations that we're having, please subscribe.
Tell us.
Leave us a comment. If you hate us, leave us a comment. We'll love you the same as everybody else. Yeah. So appreciate your time. Please share if you think this is educational. If you guys share it, we can spread the word. We can unite Michigan, and we can make a change.
And any other deer biologists that want to come on, we'd love to have you. You know about we'd love
educated conversations.
Yes, 100%.